Question 34. Muscles and fascia of the neck. Sternocleidomastoid muscle, suprahyoid and infrahyoid muscles, and scalene muscles. The first muscle of the neck is the platysma. It originates on the skin over the clavicle and inserts on the skin along the body of mandible. It is supplied by facial nerve. Next we have sternocleidomastoid muscle, again in yellow, which originates on the sternum and clavicle and inserts on the mastoid process. It is supplied by the 11th cranial nerve, the accessory nerve, and the function is flexion and extension of head, one on each side. It also divides the anterior and posterior triangle of the neck. Now the suprahyoid group of muscles, in green, you have the digastric muscle, which originates in the digastric fossa of mandible and inserts on the mastoid notch. The anterior belly is supplied by trigeminal nerve and the posterior belly is supplied by facial nerve. Then we have stylohyoid muscle, this one, from the styloid process to the hyoid bone. Then we have mylohyoid muscle, as you can see up here. It is one of the muscles that create the floor of the mouth, and it originates on the mylohyoid line of the mandible and is supplied by trigeminal nerve. Lastly, we have geniohyoid muscle, which is also one of the muscles of the floor of the mouth, which originates on the spine of the mandible. It is supplied by a hypoglossal ansa. Then we have the infrahyoid group in blue. They are all supplied by ansa cervicalis or hypoglossal ansa. You have sternohyoid, sternothyroid, thyrohyoid, and omohyoid. The omohyoid originates on the scapula. Lastly, the scalene muscles, anterior, medial, and posterior scalene muscles. The anterior scalene muscle, scalenus muscle, originates on cervical vertebrae 3 to 6 on the transverse processes and inserts on the first rib in front of the groove of the subclavian artery. The scalenus medius originates on C2 to C7, also transverse processes, and inserts on the first rib behind the groove of the subclavian artery. So the medial and anterior scalene muscles have between them a fissura scalenorum, or a scalenic fissure, and through this space you have subclavian artery and brachial plexus. The subclavian vein is not contained in the scalenic fissure, it is located in front of the scalenus anterior. Lastly, we have the posterior scalenus posterior, origins on C4 to C5, also transverse process, and inserts on the second rib. The scalene muscles are supplied by cervical spinal nerves. The function of the scalene muscles is flexion of cervical spine and elevation of first and second ribs. This aids the respiration.